Okay, welcome to a random video game um, recording. So I am just kind of jumping around to random games, and this is Divinity Original Sin 2. It's probably one of my top 10 games of all time. There's just a lot of strategy that goes into building your character, and there's so many different abilities to choose from. I spent a lot of time and came up with my own favorite build, which is kind of a very silly build. It's all healing and summoning, and it's also a very unique build for this game because generally tanks are not really a thing in this game. Um, Characters that have a lot of HP and can soak up a lot of damage, it's generally not an advisable strategy because if you don't invest any points into your strength, finesse, or intelligence, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot of damage with any of your own damaging abilities. However, with summoning, the summoning magic school, you get to summon creatures. Then these creatures and also totems, they don't scale with any of these offense stats here, strength, finesse, or intelligence. They scale entirely off of summoning, which is kind of wacky because it allows you to forego all these damage stats and invest all your points into constitution and memory to have the most skills possible and also be very tanky. So the core of this build here is obviously summoning. We're going to have Bone Widow, Bloated Corpse, Incarnate, Totems, and additionally we're going to take a lot of utility like defensive spells, Armor, Frost, Fortify. These are kind of just core defense spells. We've got like basically every heal spell in the book. Dashes like Phoenix Dive, Cloak and Dagger, and then Adrenaline. That's probably the best ability in the entire game, best skill. Got Living on the Edge, more defensive traits, and then we have our infusions. So like Shadow Infusion, Farsight Infusion, Power Infusion. I think Shadow Infusion is worthwhile all the time because when you put on your Incarnate, you can apply an extra decay because you kind of need to apply decay with this build if you want to kill enemies with your healing. I have some of the Larian mods enabled. I've got Blood Infusion, and what Blood Infusion can do for you, it's just a really nice physical damage buff to your Incarnate, but with the Larian mods you can apply them to your other primary summons like your Bone Widow and Bloated Corpse, and the Bone Widow gets Decaying Touch when you give it Blood Infusion, so that's an extra decay in addition to your own Decaying Touch and Corrupted Blade. So I think I will show this in action. Should probably explain my other character here. He is a necromancer, and so he does mostly physical damage. My summoner does mostly physical damage. It's a very synergistic comp, I would say, but this is another one of my favorite builds because it combines the Torturer talent, which increases the duration of your damage over time effects and also makes them pierce target's armor. Because in this game, when you have armor, you are basically immune to most status effects that would negatively affect you. So you have your health bar, and then you also have your armor bars, your physical and magic. And those protect you from damage, but also from CC statuses. However, with Worm Trimmer here, it counts as a damage over time effect, so its duration is extended by 1 turn. So it goes from 2 to 3 turns, and it's a snare effect. So I can kind of just tell someone to just sit there, don't move, for 3 turns if I want. And it's kind of handy. However, right now, these 2 mages, they already don't have physical armor, so I could just cast Earthquake and knock them down for a decent start. Unfortunately, I did set myself on fire. I also set that guy on fire. But next, what I will do is see if I can apply decay to one of these people. That can kind of get the combo started. So they're gonna come over here, they're gonna heal this guy. Also cast reactive shot, that's an interesting play. They both got knocked down, so they couldn't really do anything. Knockdown is a very powerful effect. So something I'm gonna do here, I don't really want to move through this oil. I might just climb the vine. Hopefully I'm not in the oil. I did get in the oil though. So I'm gonna try to get out of it. Alright, I think I'm out of it now. But now this person is decaying. So alright, what I will do first is summon my incarnate. In fact, yes, I'll summon my incarnate because I want to deal with this guy over here. And I have enough AP for some buffs like Power Infusion. I may as well do Farsight Infusion to protect my incarnate. Gives it more magic armor. But now I'm probably going to want to use some AP for healing. Because I can do a considerable amount of damage to this person by just healing them. And see so it says heals for 78 vitality for 2 turns, but when you deal damage with on a decaying target with healing, it does physical damage, and that scales with warfare. So I max out summoning first with this build, but I prioritize warfare second, and then probably Hydrosophist third, because that increases your healing. This increases the damage done with your healing on a decaying target, but also increases some other damage you might deal, like bouncing shield. It scales entirely with your shield and warfare. So every couple turns you can have like a decent ranged attack that scales with your shield. But what I'm going to do here is probably you know what? Dome of Protection might be a good play. It's just future precaution, but I guess people still need to get to us first. So what I'm going to do is actually Adrenaline, and I'm going to place a totem. Just a normal totem because physical damage. I'm going to try not to put it in the oil. And what I'm going to do here is give my incarnate, I think I'll give my incarnate Blood Infusion. Now you can do some damage with your with decay obviously, but the incarnate also does kind of an insane amount of damage, and also has battering ram with power infusion, so I can knock this guy down and still attack him with, I believe the ranged attack is even more powerful than a normal attack, but actually I want to focus this person over here because they're still gonna get to move if I don't deal with them soon. Whereas that guy's already losing his next turn. Okay, so they're healing him. They gotta get through this fire to get to us. So we kind of positioned ourselves well here. So what I'm gonna do is probably finish off this person. If I can get in a decent position to use teleportation, that might work out. I'm just gonna have to see. I think this might work. If you teleport an enemy on top of another enemy, or close enough, you'll deal damage to both. Let's see, yeah, that worked out. That was a lot of damage. Now I can follow that up with a bouncing shield. Unfortunately, I might not be able to, because the angle is a little bit awkward. Yeah, the rock is in the way. Actually, you'll see this person has decaying and regenerating, which means I actually don't have to do any more work to take care of them, because on the start of their next turn they'll actually die from the regeneration. So I think what I will do is haste my teammate here and mosquito swarm this other person just to get some bleed applied, some decent damage. So now their archer has to approach. So what I should be doing right now, I should apply Shadow Infusion to my Incarnate because it doesn't have it yet. I will use... I do have a lot of options here. I think I will just place a totem. And I will let's see, what can I do here? I can get a better vantage point up here. Let's see. Yeah, there's not much to do here. I guess I can take out some of their armor with the bouncing shield. Oh, well, the totem took care of that person. And, well, that's interesting. Haven't seen that bug in a while. So this guy, he still has a good amount of health left. I might not focus on him that much because he's already lost his turn for this round, so I think I'm gonna just go for a couple ranged attacks. Go one on this person, and then mosquito swarm on the archer to also apply some bleed. So they're taking a lot of just damage over time. Gonna be summoning some totems. Alright, not too bad. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll buff myself with Peace of Mind. Gives me more damage. So then I can use Infect with High Ground Advantage. Big damage there. In fact, bleeding will not do quite enough, but I believe this totem Well, her turn's up next, so I might just want to take her down. Doesn't look like I can quite reach, though. So I might just... I guess if I use adrenaline, I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to Phoenix Dive. And shield throw. That should do it. And finally, I can kind of just buff up my magic armor, just in case. So they bled out. And now my summoner gets to go. So I have quite a few. I have some CC abilities like Battle Stomp, Battering Ram. These are kind of just really strong abilities in general for any physical damage comp. Because I can kind of just stall for a while. I can knock this guy down again if I want. And I think I will do that. And next, I think I will try to get over to this guy so that I can get him with my Corrupted Blade, or just my Decaying Touch. That's less AP. So now he's decaying, and I'm just gonna do a neat little trick. I'm gonna Soulmate this guy. So that shares healing, which, since he's decaying, my healing will damage him. So now I can kind of just, I got these giant potions, but that's a little overkill. I could just chug one of these normal potions, and that's a lot of damage right there. So that's a pretty potent combo for this build. There's also, it can be amplified by certain talents, which I'll get into in a bit. So yeah, this fight wasn't too difficult. This is on Tactician difficulty, but obviously with Lone Wolf, things aren't too difficult. I think I may as well just supercharger my Incarnate, just double damage to finish him off, if I can. So range attack, which I believe does slightly more damage than just normal melee, and then I just followed up with a melee. Alright, so that concludes that. Alright, so on to kind of more info about the build. I kind of already went over the abilities, like definitely summoning, but also the talents. So I've got Lone Wolf, which it's a situational talent. You can only use this with a two-person party, and it makes your characters more powerful. They get 2 more HP or AP each turn. They get way more vitality and armor, and it also doubles all the points you put into your magic schools and your attributes, which is very helpful, and it makes your characters quite overpowered. However, for a summoning build like this, none of our damage really scales with these damage stats, so Lone Wolf, all that really means for us is that we get to be tankier, and we get to have more points for more skills and just higher health, and also just more access to skills, because one thing that kind of throttles a summoning build is that you want to max summoning as much as you can as soon as possible with your investment points. Now, and that restricts which other schools of magic you can go into if you want to keep your maxed out Incarnate. However, with Lone Wolf, you only need half as many points to max out your summoning, so it's very strong early on. The big thing with summoning here is that it becomes reliant on armor pickups going later into the game, whereas other builds don't really have to struggle as much with that because they tend to just scale with investing points into damage stats. But summoning, you need to get equipment that has summoning on it. I got lucky with this ring. I have Venom Bite, which is a legendary dagger. I believe it's the only dagger in the game, maybe the only weapon in the game. One of the few weapons in the game that has summoning bonuses on it. So I'm probably just gonna keep this. My dagger's damage doesn't really matter much, and with the Larian mods, I could scale this up if I wanted to. But for now, it'll just stay as a level 9 dagger for the rest of the game. So also onto what type of armor do I equip, because you still need to invest some points into one of your offense stats if you want to equip armor, because armor comes in 3 different types. There's strength, finesse, and intelligence armor. Strength is focused more on physical armor, and intelligence focused more on magic armor. Finesse is more balanced. I'm choosing finesse because, well, it does give a good balance, and I just prefer a nice balance of armor. However, I have in the past tried a summoner build with a kind of a hybrid approach where I put points in both strength and intelligence, and I just take a mix of those 2 types of armor, and it's pretty effective. I think it does actually total more armor than just going all finesse armor. However, I'm going to be equipping daggers with this build purely for Corrupted Blade, which is another way of applying decaying. So that is the main reason why I'm going finesse. Also, I can save some points that otherwise would have gone into strength and intelligence. I can put those into con and memory. Now for more of the talents, living armor is good for this build, but it's not essential. It just converts, when you heal your health, it also heals your magic armor by 35% of that amount. So if you're getting bursted down by magic damage, this can help a lot in certain fights. And there's Lone Wolf, I covered that. There's the Pawn. So the Pawn requires you to invest a point in the Scoundrel, but that point is honestly very worth it. It lets you also have skills like Adrenaline, and I mean obviously you'll want like Cloak and Dagger and Corrupted Blade, which will require another point into Scoundrel. So while you're investing points in there, you may as well pick up the Pawn. It's a very useful talent for saving your AP because you get a little bit of free movement each turn, and repositioning is just great for any build, being able to reposition for no cost. Now, I'm not far along enough in the game to have like all the talents I could possibly have. More of the talents that I would go for would be Picture of Health. Later on in the game, Picture of Health is very nice for boosting your vitality because like you're going to try to get as many points in Warfare as possible after you get as many points in Summoning as you can, and then Picture of Health gives you 3% more health for each point in Warfare you have. So if you got 10 points in Warfare, you get 30% more vitality, which is pretty great for the end game. However, I would not take this early on, only once I've basically maxed out my Warfare. Another option, Far Out Man is kind of a option. I don't think it's the best choice. it does give you a little more range, which is kind of useful for placing your incarnates and summons and buffs, and really like all of your skills. The majority of your skills do get enhanced by this, but it's kind of a small bonus, and I would only pick it up if I just had no better option. So I like to take Leech for this build, and that's kind of the thing that you might alternate with Far Out Man. Leech heals you when you stand in blood, and it consumes the blood, almost like the Bloodsucker skill. However, it's a very small amount of healing. It's usually not super impactful, and it's the main reason I'm taking it is for that soulmate combo that you saw a bit ago. If I were to apply soulmate to an enemy and then use raining blood or something, or there's already a lot of blood on the ground, and then I just walk through the blood, it's just an extra bit of damage. It's pretty handy. It also does combo with living armor, which is nice. And then there's Mnemonic. You probably want to take this if you're not going Lone Wolf. Maybe, you'd put that in the same slot as Lone Wolf, because it's just very useful having extra memory. You are going to want a lot of skills for utility in this build, and yeah, you need a lot of memory slots for that, and Mnemonic is great for that. So I think the last talent I would probably go for, this one is kind of a very cheeky choice. 5-star Diner doubles the effects of food and potions, which for most builds you're probably not going to want this. It's mainly effective for this build for that soulmate combo. As I mentioned earlier, like these giant healing potions, they heal for 1200 HP, and if you were to double that with 5-star Diner and then apply that to a decaying enemy, or even an undead enemy, that's 2400 damage, which at this point in the game, Act 2 is kind of absurd. Kind of more damage than any build has any right to do, I think. It's kind of just like a flat scaling thing, but even late game, like end game, 2400 damage is no joke, and that also gets amplified. I think maybe you saw earlier, it did get amplified by Warfare. This potion dealt like somewhere around 400 damage instead of 290. That's because it's getting amplified by Hydro and Warfare. And yeah, if you take 5-star Diner later on in the game, or even just now, I could maybe swap it out for living armor and just go for the big combo. You can kind of just take out whatever enemy you want at this point in the game, and it's just very, very handy. Okay, so closing notes with this build. It's very much I'd say a unique build, as I mentioned earlier. If you want to play a tank or a healer, this is just kind of a fun build that lets you actually play that support role without sacrificing all your damage output like you typically would if you just didn't really go for damage stats. And your contribution to the team would really come from just abusing action economy with summons, and then also just having a lot of damage dealing effects that don't scale off of these offense stats. You kind of just use like everything in the game that doesn't scale with your offense. Like there's bouncing shield, healing with decay, summons, and then you also get to be the tankiest character in the party. you can be kind of unkillable. Now, having a lot of vitality is not really, it's not amazing because, again, like your armor is kind of your core health. Once you run out of armor, you're in trouble because you can be, CC'd and statused and, just potentially not be able to move until you're dead. But I find that having a lot of health actually does make it feasible to survive through the CC and the statuses. Whereas like most builds, like if you run out of armor, you're kind of done. With this build, like they might, knock you down a couple turns and just, chip away through your health, but you might survive. You have a decent chance of surviving with, some portion of health and potentially stabilizing the fight. Also, while you're being focused down, that's, more time for your teammates to help you out and finish up the fight. If you do happen to get focused, lose all your armor, and get status, enemies like to stack statuses on the same person from what I've seen. And definitely take a shield. That's another thing I forgot to mention with the gear you want to go for. Definitely prioritize gear with summoning on it. Take a shield, which, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory if you're building Constitution. It just makes you much tankier. Gives you way more armor, and you only need to single wield a dagger for your corrupting blade. So, and additionally, there's a neat little trick you can do where you unequip your dagger for a moment, and you get access to, I believe I have it with this guy, yeah, Sucker Punch. Like he can, unequip his wand, and, when you just have an offhand equipped, like a shield, you get to use Sucker Punch, which is the cheap knockdown effect, and that's kind of just another stall tool as like a last resort. So don't forget that you have that option. I think that concludes this build showcase. There's a lot more going on here in this build. There are a lot of different little combos you can make. But for the most part, it's just a lot of healing, a lot of defense, and a lot of summons, and lets you be tanky while also dealing damage that is kind of absurd for how little you put into your offense stats. So thank you for watching. Maybe I'll do more guides like this, maybe for other games, we'll see. Until next time, have a great day.